You know, I know I'm not big enough as a bodybuilder. I don't carry the amount of muscle that my frame requires at my height, which is not for today's standards anyway.
I don't know, man.
You're not. What do you think, Kai? This is interesting because
I think it's one of those things where, like, you have to identify what you want to do. You know, the potential of building your physique and the desire to build your physique is your own.
of course,
And
it has to be the first and
you know, I
foremost.
think one of the things that can happen is like I remember when I was just coming up in the sport, I remember thinking I wanted to be big, and I did. I wanted to be really big. And one thing I didn't understand, and it took me a very long time to figure out, was that there are different levels to being big. You know, and just because when I was a boy or a teenage bodybuilder, in my efforts to decide to be big and to work to manifest that as a creation for myself, I realized that my version of being big may not necessarily be the same idea or fit the same mold that everyone may have when they talked about being big. You know, so here's the thing. I used to want to be big, and when I talked about being big in my own mind as a kid, you know, I wanted to be the biggest man on the world. You know, however, in reality, you know, though I could develop myself to become very sizable, it still didn't mean though that I needed to be actually the biggest man by other people's standards.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and I think one of the things that helped me see that in time was through the sport. There are different categories. There's a 212. There's a men's physique. There's an open men's bodybuilding. There's a heavyweight. There's a lightweight. There's a middle. And my point is that what is big, you know, for a guy that's 5'2", you know, proportionally, may not actually have been what I meant when I said that I wanted to be big in my own picture of being big. But with saying that, the biggest that looks great on me and that may fit the standards that I may aspire to be at this time in my life doesn't necessarily have to be what everybody else would say is big in relationship to another bodybuilder with a much larger frame, you know? So just because you may want to be big, and I may want to be big myself, doesn't mean though that I need to be aspiring to be as big Ronnie. And if I'm not able to meet those standards, then oh my God, I'm for nothing. My value is less than, and I need to go give up and think, you know, less of myself. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's the right way to see it.
I don't think it is either. I think what I identified just from like a visual standpoint is, so obviously I know I didn't quite get it right. I know I kind of overdone it a little bit on this prep, but what I do notice is like just like because I'm clavically quite narrow, and that's what I find hurts me in a lineup is my natural shoulder width. Because when I'm in a lineup, it kind of I disappear in the front relaxed. Kind of that's when it hurts. Side shots I can hold my own. Back shots I can kind of hold my own to a certain extent. But it's just I get really hurt on the front shots, and once they've already seen those two, it's kind of like they're the first impression. So it's whether it's a presentation thing as well. It's obviously going to take some presentation adjustment. But just from my own kind of foresight of what I've seen happen to me at shows previously is, even when I won 2 shows, I only won from the side and back. I was actually on the outside of the call-outs on the front shots, and they pulled me back in from my side and back shots. So it's just from experience, I know that I've got to rectify my physique from the front. So I've got a very clear indication of what needs to be done. It's just now trying to work out how I do it, and it's obviously it's part of the craft. But I don't think I need to be, like I said, I don't think I need to be a 320-pound monster by any means. Because I even at this show, for example, maybe even if I turned up 3 weeks ago, how I was looking in the bar, I probably would have placed a bit better, if I'm honest, just because I had a bit more to me. I think timing and just understanding my body and just little things like that are more important than how much fucking mass you can obtain, for sure. But there are certainly some body parts on me that do need some work.
Yeah, you know what? I am not trying to be diplomatic in the sense that
I like hearing your.
I honestly, I really do feel like there's a journey that I think I've gotten a chance to kind of experience, and I think it wouldn't be a good thing if I chose to speak out of turn, or in other words, to speak without a respect to that journey. So what do I mean? When I say that, I mean to say that when I started this game, I was in pursuit of developing a big pair of arms and a big chest. On the road to doing that, I discovered, oh shit, well, the things that it would take me to build a bigger pair of arms and a bigger chest, were going to be the things that ultimately would allow me to build other parts of my body and every part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now with saying that, I also realized that that's been a journey that's been now a little more time than I really care to say on camera, and with saying that, I realized, wow, to judge myself by the size of my arms, the size of my chest,
I don't want to be that person.
It's
just, it's a difficult one, because I think, if you're at a point in life, I think you're very aware, and you've lived a longer, a more experienced existence than me, for sure, because I haven't been on this planet as long, and I haven't seen the things you've seen, for sure. It's, when you're in the midst of it, when you was Kai Greene of 2000 and let's say about 7, Keystone Classic times, like around there, and then the Arnold Kai Greene hadn't come yet, the 2008 third place, and then the 2009 victory. What was your headspace then? Because that's like, and I'm not trying to compare, and I don't want to compare, because no man should compare, but I would imagine where I am in my mind is somewhere around where you were at that time. That desire, and not having the experience you have now of life on a much grander scale. You're still very much, probably then I imagine you were more linear in your thoughts, because I know that I am, because obviously I'm where I am currently. What thinking back, what would you say to me? Because it's very hard, isn't it? It's very different, because you're not Kai Greene of that time now, because you know more. You know more valuable information now. Because like you say, a lot of your value comes from things that you've experienced, not just in the gym now. And you value things outside so much more than perhaps you did, I would imagine, back then. Black and white, clearly, like at that point in your career where you knew that you needed to either go forwards or not. How do you approach that? That's what I wonder.
So here's the thing. I think, dude, this is ultimately what it became. I think was a big lesson in just being able to build your value, build your equity, your recognizable equity, and I thought then that the way for me to do that was to do it by being on stage and winning, and I was fortunate in the respect that I was able to discover that even though I was able to see this through a very limited gaze, that I could do that, right? But now looking back on it, I now see that your ability to do that is only limited if you're able to see it that way. It's much like a man that is able to see his manhood and value and masculinity just on the size of
factors. Like I say, without considering,
you have so much more to offer than that, than just that, and though the road to discovering, you know, where my real power comes from, I had to go through that. But now, I don't want to take away from the value of, because there was a time when that's all I could see, you know. But now on this side of it, I'm like, dude, your value can never be determined by, just the size of your arms or the size of your, it's like when I was a kid, I used to want to have the biggest penis. I want to be, you know what I mean? And does it mean, because here's the problem, is if you do a little bit of growing, you do a little bit more experience, and you get to a place where well, wow, you mean to tell me I'm not the biggest penis in the room? Well, then how do I deal with it?
That's always the way.
There's always more, But now with that, I understand, wow, you know what, how limiting that was for me, or how wrong it would be for me to encourage my son to think, hey man, you have to be the biggest penis in the room, and if you're not, then your manhood and your value is minimized by the lack. That would be wrong. It is too limiting. And the truth is, your power and your value is so much more than that.
I will say this. Being here has made me see that. Because, being here, I'll tell you now, obviously, there's shows, yeah? There's competitions. But I'm also, my eyes are very open to the environment we're in and the potential to do great things within that environment, content. Build relationships, expand. And I will be honest, I'm more excited about that than any competition. So I feel that, right now, because I have, for example, I have a choice right now, yeah? I could go back on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because it makes sense. But at the same time, there's part of me that's like, if you enjoy what you do, and you take it all in, and you're in an environment that you find positive and constructive, and focus on those other things as well, a byproduct of that is improvement. You can't not improve if you do the tasks at hand, but coincided with also leveling up. And I'm more interested in leveling up. Like a lot of people, like Regan, people have messaged me, they're like, yeah, come do the show next week. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of like, my eyes see bigger than that right now. My eyes see that I'm over here with Redcon, that we have an opportunity to pretty much do something on a daily that expands the brand and the personality and the awareness of who you are and the transparency of what you're about. And anyone that's ever supported me in bodybuilding, Kai, the last thing they say is they care about what I look like on stage. They all care about the ethic, they all care about the personality and the method. And these things you're saying are just highlighting those things. Like your character is more what you are than even your physique. Like I say, the size of your arms, yes, we are professional bodybuilders and it's important for us to have those attributes and work on them. But for it to be like such a linear, a one-track mind where that's all you can focus on, it's not healthy for a man.
If that's where you are, if that's where you are, then I think there's a time and place, not only when that obviously needs to be respected, but that's when it's your job and responsibility to do that shit up. However, once you get to that place, because this thing, bodybuilding, it's about the progressive realization of this progressive idea that's ever expanding of yourself toward the better, the man that you want to be. Not necessarily being held hostage to the sins of your father, and those things. But yeah, I mean, the truth is, you're able to identify who you want to be and become that. So like the lesson for me when getting ready for a bodybuilding show is that, hey, I identify a targeted space, a look that I wanted to have, that once I get to this look, this will represent what we aspire to be when we think about being the example of being conditioned and prepared to present, on this stage at this time, at this part of my career. However, at the time that I figured that out, I understand that that's not where I am yet. So now what I have to do is now count backward, whether it's 20 weeks, 24 weeks, 32 weeks, and and progressively now, once we realize the goal, work towards the progressive realization of that. But now, just as I am able to identify that I'm able to build myself to that, now I'm also able to think, well, in terms of what it would take to identify the man that I want to be.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and realize that and work progressively towards that realization as well. So within saying that, I think that is how this experience of this bodybuilding has kind of revealed to me the secret of not just being what I think I'm supposed to be naturally. Oh, my genetics. Fuck genetics. This is about being able to identify the man and the progressive realization of any dream that I have, whether it's a successful businessman, a successful father, however it is that I'm able to support, you know, what I think the right thinking realization of the target that I want to see realized with the steps of my life, you know. That said, yo man, thank you, bodybuilding. You know, thank you, you know, for this experience.
Yeah, the bodybuilding gives you a there's like a blueprint, and that blueprint can be utilized in so many avenues. It teaches you a way to approach things, but it doesn't shackle you to only approach that.
Right.
And that's the good thing about it, is that it's not, although bodybuilding is what got you that understanding of preparation and, you know, organization, and it doesn't mean that you can't do anything other. And that's what I'm starting to really appreciate with that, for sure.